Listen, Cam was an A-plus player in 2015 when his team went 15-1, when he won the league MVP, running away with it. And then in 2016, he was not nearly as good. And in 2017, even though they made the playoffs, he was not nearly as good. But in 2018, prior to his shoulder giving out on him after the TJ Watt hit, he was playing the best football of his life. A career 59% completion percentage, was up almost to 70%. He was nearly 300 yards a game. It's 26 touchdowns if you add the rushing to it, to 7 interceptions, and a passer rating of 104. And he was once again, as he has throughout his career, he was doing it with unproven or average at best wide receivers, which is what he's had to deal with his entire time in Carolina post Steve Smith. I mean, the last time we saw Cam in a playoff game was January of 2018. So a few months before the 2018 season started. They would have won on the road in New Orleans if Cam had anybody that could reach his level of play at the receiver position. Kalen Clay dropped Cam couldn't have handed him a touchdown pass any better. Look at this early in the game. This is just a momentum killer. Just dropped. Perfect pass by Cam, right in the breadbasket, and Kalen Clay drops it. Despite that, late in the game, Cam has driven them in range for a game-winning touchdown pass. 3rd and 23. Turn around, Devin Funchess. You see the score? Down 5, less than a minute left. This is in New Orleans to win the game. So if Cam is some guy in decline, Wildes, as opposed to a guy who hurt his shoulder and then broke his foot, this anonymous GM is watching different film than I am.
First of all, shout out to Anonymous GM, one of our favorite guests on this show, provides us with a lot of news. So Anonymous GM, always welcome on First Things First. Someday, go out for a drink, but I don't know who you are.
Not today.
What got me thinking, Greg, when we were watching the match, and we thought who's on the front 9 and who's on the back 9? We had the old quarterbacks on the back 9, and me and Dusty, our researcher, said, let's divide up the quarterbacks. Who's on the front 9? And who's on the back 9? We don't want to say a decline, who's in decline, but I would actually argue if you're on the back 9 of your career, you might be still pretty good. Here's a quick list. Big Ben, Rivers, Carr, Foles, Stafford, Rodgers, Cousins, Matt Ryan, Breeze, Brady. He put Goff on there. I'm not putting Goff on there, Dusty. Brady. So I don't think if Cam is on a little bit of a decline, okay, is he going to be literally flipping into the end zone? Maybe not. Is Cam Newton still a great player that should be on your team, Bill Belichick? Probably. Do I still like Jarrett the Javelin? Yes. Should you put a call into Cam's agent? Maybe. I'm just saying the decline might be slight, but there's a ton of quarterbacks on decline who are still pretty good, Greg.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing about the National Football League, what they try to do is they want to label you. And with Cam Newton, obviously we know his injuries and what he has not been able to do up to this point and showcase the talent that he obviously possesses. But once they label you, and they're labeling Cam as declining, as injury prone, and several other things possibly, but they label you to devalue you. And that's what I feel like is happening with Cam Newton. He's a great player. He's proven to be a great player who has set the bar so high that if he ever does not achieve that level of standard of play, which he set for himself, the precedent was set by himself and himself only, then yes, everyone's going to say, oh, he's not the same player. If he doesn't match the MVP, the offensive player of the year, the getting his team to the Super Bowl, and the next year and the year after he doesn't come anywhere close, people are going to say, is he the same player? And that's fair. But you can't just say that about Cam Newton when it's a team sport. It's, yes, did he get that team to the Super Bowl pretty much offensively on his own? Yeah, but he had a great defense. Was his defenses the same the following 2 years? They were good. They weren't as good as they were that year. And so for me, it's it's one of those deals where once you start getting labeled in the National Football League, everyone starts jumping on that label bandwagon and saying, yeah, that's why we don't have them. That's why we don't have them. But there is not one general manager, anonymous or not, that can sit here and tell me that Cam Newton is not, forget the starting quarterbacks, that he's not a second-tier guy following a starting quarterback. It's not even a question that he is more than that.
And the problem is there doesn't seem to be anything he can do about it right now. Teams can't bring him in to work him out. You know, he can't get on the phone and convince people that he's healthy again, so he puts out videos. He says he's willing to be a backup somewhere. He seems to be putting all the work in. Greg, is there anything he can do at this point besides just let the labels fall where they are? I mean, have you ever experienced anything like that where you've been labeled one way, but you can't really convince the rest of the league you're not that guy anymore?
Yeah, well, he's doing everything that he possibly can and everything that he should, and everything within his power. For myself, I got labeled as being injured, old, and not as fast as I once was, couldn't create the separation. And it was all predicated on the fact that I left Green Bay and I no longer had a quarterback that could put the ball where I needed him to put it, period. I played a dependent position. But what Cam Newton is dealing with is a team in the Carolina Panthers who, going into the 2019 season, said, okay, Cam's going to have to change the way he plays. We want him to be more of a pocket guy. We don't want him running the ball. Well, guess what? What makes Cam Newton special is the fact that he's a dual threat quarterback. The fact that he can be a threat with his legs as well as his arm. Let him be who he is. And so once you start to try and take away things that makes a player special and unique and great, then yes, his play is going to look a little different, but he still was able to produce outside of the injuries. I don't see why he's not on the team.
And he's been unfairly labeled injury prone because he broke his foot. Here's an inconvenient fact for the folks who have disliked Cam for a decade and have been waiting for an excuse to push him out of the league. Prior to breaking his foot, Cam Newton was eligible to play in 128 NFL games. He played in 123 of them. Prior to breaking his foot, his most games missed in a season was 2, and 5 years he played all 16. He played 16 5 times, 15 once, and 14 twice. And then he broke his foot. A broken foot is not a spinal cord injury that takes you out of football unless people, for some reason, want you to have a reason to be out of football, Jenna.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.